When you're a mobster, but also a pizza taco, Al Calzone. When you're a mobster, but also an extraterrestrial, Al Phone Home. When you're a mobster, but you're lying down, Al is prone. When you're a lonely mobster, Al is alone. Yep. When you're a mobster, but you do a lot of cocaine, Al is stoned. When you're a mobster, but you need some money, Al gets a loan. The other one I didn't create a setup for, but just Al Carphone.
Hello, everybody. This podcast is Lava. My name is James Font. To my left, Sam Shoemaker. In front of me, Silas Whitlock. And to my right, Josiah Springer.
He's not important right now because he's not going to talk.
But he was the jokester at the beginning of this podcast.
Okay.
So Josiah made Josiah made those jokes up, and he is very talented in that particular department.
Did you seriously make those up? I don't believe you.
His face says yes, but his mind says no.
It's the other way around.
His face said, it's the exact opposite of that, Sam.
This episode is sponsored by Custom Edge Tech Solutions out of Archbold, Ohio. You can find them on Instagram and Facebook. Be sure to ask them about any technology questions you may have. Thank you so much, Custom Edge Tech. Today's topic or person of interest is Al Capone, famous gangster.
Yeah, so we're talking about the famous gangster, Alphonse Gabriel Capone, otherwise known as Scarface. Scarface. Say hello to my little friend.
That was him doing crack cocaine.
I've never seen the Scarface movie.
I've never seen it either. I think there's a lot of cocaine in it.
Yeah, I also don't think it's loosely based off of Capone.
Very loosely.
Right. I think the most, and this isn't even fully accurate, but the most accurate that I've watched was The Untouchables. It's a drama movie that's focused around the police officers who
Elliot
eventually
Ness and the Untouchables.
Yeah, they eventually brought him down with the we'll get to that. They eventually brought him down.
Eventually.
With the or not eventually.
Maybe he's still alive.
Listen on to find out more. He was born on January 17th of the year 1899. Interestingly enough, he was the first of the Capone family to be born in America after they immigrated from Italy in the year 1894. He would eventually go on to become one of the world's, or maybe just America's, I don't know. He would go on to become one of the most famous gangsters and mob bosses of the Prohibition era.
Actually, the world. He's world renowned. Like if you say Chicago in most places, people are like, oh, Al Capone.
You do realize that he operated in Chicago, right?
Yeah, that was the point. So like if you go somewhere else, you go not to Chicago, but you go somewhere else.
Oh, I thought you said...
If you say Chicago...
If you go somewhere else and say something like, I'm from Chicago, they go, oh, it's like, do you know anything about Capone?
I totally heard that as...
If you go to
Chicago and you say something about Capone, they'll be like, yeah, Capone.
No, if you go to Chinese, I mean China,
Oh, no.
and you go, you know Chicago? And they go, oh.
If you go to the...
you know Al Capone?
If you go to the if you go to the country of Chicago, they might know about Capone because he was named after the country of Chicago. The Capone family grew up in Brooklyn, where his father was actually a barber. Hey, I'm walking here. I'm cutting hair here. What you doing? Hey, this is Brooklyn.
And they were actually you wouldn't have thought that their children would grow up and be involved in crime. They were very nice people, and they were very upheld in the community.
And I believe they were very devout Catholics as well.
Yeah, his mother was a Christian until the end, or like a very devout religious woman.
Yeah, devout Catholic to the end. And fun fact, Brooklyn is actually the home of Miles Morales, the Spider-Man.
Yep.
Yes, that's actually very true.
That's a really accurate historical tidbit.
Spider-Man
100%
Into the
true.
Spider-Verse, highly recommended movie. It's rated, I think,
PG.
Is that one of our sponsors? I think they're sponsoring us too.
Yeah, Marvel is sponsoring us now. Woo!
Yeah, we're really big.
We're going to get sued now.
Dang it.
We said Marvel.
I marvel
This isn't
at
UK,
this
we're fine.
story.
Oh, yeah.
I marvel at the story of this. This is amazing.
Just as drunk on ginger beer.
What goes into that, though, is that Al Capone was a really good student starting out. But the problem was he seemed to be incapable of keeping to the strict rules of his Catholic school. Now, that all...
Like getting down on your knees.
Haha. Well, this would have been run by nuns.
Yeah, getting down on your knees.
Haha.
Nuns don't run, so yeah, that's actually accurate.
What's not surprising is that he was expelled at the age of 14 for hitting a teacher in the face.
I've done that.
Not nice.
I was homeschooled.
Don't hit a woman or a man. Don't hit anyone. It's bad.
Sam.
I don't know. Growing up in that time, though, like I think I probably would have wanted to punch one of the nuns in the face. Just saying.
And
And I'm a nice guy.
back then, though, there wasn't any regulations against how mean you could be as a teacher. Now it's like, if you raise your voice at the kids, you're bad, you're fired. But then it was like, yeah, you want to beat the kids with
Is he
a
able
wooden
Is
stick?
he able to walk home? He's fine.
Can he limp home with 7 splinters up his butt? Oh, he's fine.
Just like
That's a weird spanking
the
technique.
government actually watched all of those
Yeah.
schools to find out like how the torture techniques.
So Capone drops out of school, basically, from that point.
I don't blame him.
And to set the scene of New York at this time, this is an era of a lot of immigration to America. And New York is really the hub of that. Now, the Italians, like Capone was Italian, obviously. The Italians were the most recent immigrant into New York. The previous, like, bottom of the totem pole were the Irish. And so the Irish and the Italians did not get along at all. So there's a lot of Irish gangs. A lot of
But wait, if the Irish were the bottom of the totem pole, and that you say the Italians were on top?
no, the Italians were on the very bottom.
Oh,
The
okay.
Italians came in and they were the low of the community.
Yeah, but if
No one
you're at the
trusted
bottom of the
them.
totem pole, aren't they really like the structure for all of society that way? Holding everyone else up? It's just face palms.
Absolutely not. People
Asterisk.
I'm hearing
face palm,
everything in reverse
asterisk.
today, apparently.
That's absolutely not true, though, because people at that time
That's not true.
thought the Italians were lazy bums who didn't really do anything and weren't trustworthy at all.
I mean, I don't blame them after eating all that pasta.
Those dang immigrants coming in being lazy, taking all of our health care.
Oh
Okay,
yeah, but
Alex
man,
Jones.
I really love their spaghetti. You know, they got the best spaghetti.
Who stole my spaghetti?
Oh no, who has stolen my spaghetti?
Nope. It's a dead meme, but you did it
We
right.
brought it back up.
We are going to revive this meme.
Hmm.
Wrongly.
Somebody touching my spaghetti, but you know.
Can I just
Someone touching my spaghetti.
can I just say the Tom and Jerry meme is like the best thing ever?
It is the best thing ever.
I've never seen a meme that's made me laugh more than that one has.
Consistently, yeah.
Which one?
When you turn off the fan because it's cold, everyone else in the helicopter. "Huh?"
Oh gosh.
That's kind of the sound that I put with that. Anyways, so there's a lot of Irish gangs that are pre-established. They've come over before the Italians and all the other immigrants, and a lot of times when people came over, they would all settle in the same general area. You know, there were families, and then there were cousins and everything, and friends, and they would all live in the same district of New York or whatever city they were in. So the Italians and the Irish were really butting heads at this time. There was a lot of turf wars that went on, and it would be very easy for someone like Capone dropping out of school to get involved in this. Now, initially, when he drops out of school, he picked up odd jobs at local candy stores and a bowling alley in Brooklyn, but he soon wound up in these street gangs of New York.
Did you know that one of his first interactions as like the gang leader for like the kids gang that he was a part of, some old lady, actually her purse was stolen from her, and he got together local kids, and they went after the kids that stole the purse from her.
Oh, yeah.
They stole the purse back and beat the crap out of those kids and brought.
Yeah.
So like his first like job as like a gang leader was actually kind of noble, other than like it being under the law and like beating the crap out of other kids.
Right.
But like the moral of the story is kind of nice, you know.
Al Capone was Batman?
But
He
it
had a
shows,
soft spot for old ladies.
and it shows early on his, I guess, affluence to really touching the hearts of the community.
Yes.
He wanted to be viewed as the good guy.
Right.
Yeah.
While still being the bad guy and the top dog.
Which he did some crazy stuff to get his reputation of being the top dog.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Crazy stuff.
He is well deserved to be one of the most well-known mobsters. Like
Yeah.
there's a reason why everyone knows Al Capone.
sure.
When you say that name, everyone knows who you're talking about.
And he actually had a name that made sense, unlike last episode, Lester, also known as George, also known as Babyface.
It was in the 1920s. People were just making all kinds of stuff
So
up.
my name is Steve. I want to be called Frederick now.
Perfect. Throughout his early years, Capone was actually involved with a lot of smaller gangs, such as the Junior 40 Thieves, the Bowery Boys, the Brooklyn Rippers, and eventually the 5 Points Gang.
The Brooklyn Rippers. Heck yeah, man. That's awesome.
I know, right?
That's
I think
super
that's cooler
cool.
than the 5 Points Gang. But if you've ever watched the movie Gangs of New York, it loosely tells the story of kind of the origin of the 5 Points Gang, or at least it kind of involves the 5 Points. It's not really the origin of the 5 Points Gang, but it involves gangs in the early 1900s
Okay.
fighting over the 5 Points area because that was always an area for immigrants and they were always fighting for control.
And if you get that area, you get 5 points, right?
Exactly.
That's what I thought.
Right. All the other
They
areas,
always had 5 points.
all the other areas were worth 2 points. That was worth 5 points.
Holy crap. Let's go get that area.
Exactly.
I want to win. I don't even know what game it is. I want to win it.
The interesting thing about the 5 Points Gang, though, was that it was primarily Irish or Irish American.
Oh.
But, you always need those underlings. And if you get someone like Capone who just seems to know his way around the streets,
Yeah.
is good with people, you'd bring him in.
Yeah.
So they brought him into their gang. And it worked out really well for him, it would seem. He met a lot of gangsters that would eventually tie into his moving through the ranks of other gangs, bigger gangs like in Chicago.
Chicago.
Now, I don't know if this is exactly a jump forward, but in 1917, Capone found employment with a man named Frankie Yale. He'll come into story a lot, actually. The owner...
Remember, write that down on your sheet.
Exactly.
Frankie Yale.
Frankie Yale. The irony is, Frankie Yale owned a cheap dance hall / brothel that was also a saloon. You go there, you get your booze, you get your girls, you leave happily for very little money, and it's probably very sleazy.
Most likely.
This place was called the Harvard Inn.
That doesn't make any sense. His name is Yale.
Exactly. Harvard, Yale. Good. That's the joke.
Did you understand, audience?
That's the
Leave
joke.
a comment down below.
Give me a solid yee, and
And
I
if you
cannot
don't-
stress this enough, ha,
And
down
if
in the
you-
comments.
And if you're listening to this in your car, just leave a post-it note with your comment on your radio.
And we'll see it.
And we'll see it because we know.
This was
Yeah.
located, this whole joint was located on the Coney Islands boardwalk, or just off the Coney Islands boardwalk. Now, Frankie was a racketeer, and for those who don't know, a racketeer is someone just that has shady, underhanded business dealings. Ooh.
My hands, they're so shady.
They're so shady. My underhands are so shady.
Ooh.
So Yale, with all of his I don't know what that even means. His underhanded deals, his racketeering, he was mentoring Capone this whole time, teaching him the ins and outs, and I'm sure getting him in contact with all of his contacts in the city and the people that were, underhanded.
The underhand of
The underhand of New York.
I don't like that. Sam's underhand is very, very sexual.
It's Italian. I mean, it's Italian.
Anyway,
Yeah. So he stayed there for about a year. And then in 1918, he was working one night. And for clarification, he was working as a bartender / bouncer. He kind of played two roles there. And one night, Frank Galuccio comes in with his sister Lena and his date, Maria Tanzio. Capone notices that Lena is very easy on the eyes, and he starts checking her out the whole evening.
What's that supposed to mean?
He thinks she's hot.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. He thinks she's He's
So would you say that she's almost easy on the eyes?
yeah.
Okay.
I would say that she was
Unlike Bertha, who was very, very hard on the eyes,
unlike his coworker Bertha, the other bartender.
who had not one, not two,
to drink? I can spit in this cup and you can drink that.
not one, but 3 moles on her nose.
Let me get my mustache hairs out of that drink there for you. Sorry.
enough that it just tastes like it.
Yeah. So
This chick was a step above that.
yeah, you might say that she was
A solid half step.
You might even say that she was easy on the eyes. So stupid.
Sorry, guys. What
Uh,
else is that?
So throughout the night, Capone is making advances to her. He tries to slip in and smoothly greet her with a fine "Hello, how are you doing?" And
Figured how you
she kind of brushes him off.
like this.
Just
Shake it up. Shake it up.
Okay, Taylor Swift.
she's trying to avoid him the whole night while her brother is getting totally hammered.
That's what I do with my sister. I'm like, hey, you want to go to a bar while I get hammered and this guy hits on you?
With his date. You know, he's with a date and he's getting
Hey,
totally
you want to come
hammered.
with me and my date and hang out and there's a third wheel weirdly, and then while I get hammered and both of you get hit on?
Yeah, that's basically that's how it went down.
Women are property because it's early 1900s.
Yep, that's how it worked, I guess.
Now, Lena's getting really annoyed at this point because he will just not back off.
He's
But-
like, hey, Dollface, how's it going?
Hey,
I'm
how's it-
Italian. Hey,
That's him old. He's
hey,
like
you want to see my spaghetti?
he's less than 20 at this point. He's like probably 17 or 18. Well, he would be 18, 19,
I got some ravioli.
1918. He was born in 1899, so he's 19.
Yep.
Trying to do the math real fast on the run. Now, finally, motivated partially by spite and partially by cockiness, Capone leans over to her and says, now this is loudly, actually this would be loudly enough for the rest of the people at the table to hear. He's not being...
And they were also looking at him because of the language he used.
Mm-hmm. He leans over to her and he says, you got a nice ass, honey, and I mean that as a compliment. Believe me. That is not only repulsive, but it's also a huge insult to an Italian family. That's the big kerfuffle that goes on here because yeah, exactly, kerfuffle.
Sorry.
Because Galuccio is also Italian, and in Italy, in the Italian families, honor and family are two of the biggest traditions, I guess, that they hold to.
Mhm.
So by him saying that to his sister in front of him, that is a direct insult on her honor.
Yeah.
And he,
And it was also an insult on him, too.
yeah, the whole family.
Yeah.
And he's drunk, so that kind of compounds it.
Yeah.
There's a couple different...
Hey, don't say it, my
Don't say that to
my sister.
Oh, shing! He's got an axe!
That's not an
Where-
axe.
Oh, sorry.
No, look out, honey.
This
He's
is
got
right.
he's got a knife. What? No, I don't have a knife.
Yeah.
But there's actually a couple different stories that have come out about this. Some say that Galuccio approached him peacefully, trying to be like, "Hey, bro, not cool." Others say that
As they talk in the
Exactly.
1900s.
exactly, and some say that Capone threw the first punch. Some say that Galuccio just lunged at him. Differing stories, but needless to say, a fight does break out, and Galuccio pulls out his pocket knife and ends up cutting Capone across the left face, or left cheek, I guess, of his face. I didn't want to say left cheek because that could be taken as his face or his other cheek. And
He got an extra butt crack, in other words. But on his face.
and so he is left permanently scarred from this interaction, which is where his nickname Scarface comes from.
Which he
He hated it.
Because
Yep.
it was a really low time and he really regretted doing that.
Yeah.
It was a stupid mistake. So if he's getting known for that, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, his old
So that's why.
Scarface.
That's why, like any of his or most of his professional photos that he took, he actually requested specially to have pictures taken from the right side of his face,
Yep.
and he used
and- or
powder
he-
to
yeah.
cover up
Yeah.
the scar.
Yeah, or like kind of like a 3/4 look. So he's he's got
Yeah.
most of his face, but that
you
side
can't
of his
see
face
that-
is pretty
that
much
big
covered.
scar.
Yeah.
Yep.
He actually did have a nickname that he preferred over that. It was Snorky.
Yep, because Snorky back in that day was like above.
Yeah,
You're like you're above her.
you're like
Well, like-
sharply dressed.
Yeah.
and kind of like
You
Posh.
enjoy the
You're
finer.
posh.
Yeah, you're posh. Yeah.
You're bougie.
yes,
Yeah. For all of our hipsters nowadays,
you're bougie,
bougie.
bougie. Also, later on, and this would be later in the podcast that he would actually be known as this, but he was later called Big Al. That was another.
Really?
That was another one that he was okay with.
Guys.
That's
Did you know also?
that's the Goonies.
No, it's not. Yeah.
Oh. Did you know later though that he actually would lie about his
yeah,
scars?
yeah, it
It's
is.
not the Goonies.
Oh, no.
Yes, hey, you guys is from the Goonies.
They're interrupting me again.
Don't fight me on this, people. I will win. You guys are thinking,
You're right. It is from the Goonies.
Fat Albert.
You are
That's
correct.
Fat Albert.
You are correct.
I only watched
I
part of
apologize.
it.
You guys is the guy that has the messed up face from the Goonies.
No, Hey You Guys is from the Electric Company on PBS. You
Hey,
dorks.
He is
Stop
not
it!
wrong.
You
We're both right.
plebes.
Ha,
Brofist?
Sam had Amish TV, just like me.
Well, I was too snorky for that.
And so
Ah.
I was like, yeah, we had Dish. It went out when the clouds came.
You're only partially right, because sometimes it worked when it was cloudy.
There were times, though, this is getting back to Al Capone now. We're just reeling it back into Al Capone. He would lie about the scars when asked, and he would say that they were war wounds.
Yes.
Even though he didn't even go to the
One time I was in the war in the trenches, and this barbed wire came ripping through the trenches and ripped my
It came
face
through
off.
on a freaking tank tractor thing.
Yeah.
And just ripped my face off.
And it had bullets that were whizzing past my head. It had a gun.
Those also had barbed wire.
Yep. Barbed wire bullets. Darn Germans.
Those dang Germans with their barbed wire brass
Guys, you were
knuckles.
saying it wrong. It is them darn Nazis. Oh, wait, that's in a couple of years.
The
Yeah.
different war.
Give it a few.
I understood.
I know!
It was the joke.
That's the whole point of me ruining it. That same year, 1918, on December 30th, Capone married May Josephine Coughlin, who had actually just given birth to their first son, Albert Francis, also known as Sonny, Capone, earlier that month. And because Al Capone was under the age of 21, his parents actually had to sign off on his marriage.
Interesting. I didn't know that was a thing back then.
Yeah, really weird. I think it was because
You could drink at 15, but you couldn't get married unless you were 27.
I think it was
Well-
because they were associated with the Catholic Church.
That
There,
makes
there may
sense.
have been
Well,
some rules there.
And if you think
Maybe.
about it, back then the kids were heavily the families were heavily dependent upon the kids like helping out with businesses and whatnot. So,
Right,
like, they
right.
couldn't necessarily have them get married off at a young age because like abusive fathers and whatnot. The kids would want to leave early, and so technically speaking, that you'd have like it makes sense based on the conditions. I'm not saying it's right, but it makes sense.
Yeah. And on all accounts from the family and their children, they actually had a very happy marriage together. Despite all of the gang involvement that would come in later years, they were happy together, which is nice.
Even though he
That's
was
true.
a serial cheater.
Yes, he was.
Constantly.
We
Always.
don't have to talk about that, but yes. Which
It comes into his death, actually.
it does. We'll get to that because that's in this this part of the Capone series that we're doing. Now, at the age of 20, so just after this, really, he was contacted by an old colleague from his involvement in one of the New York City street gangs, Johnny Torrio. And Johnny was affiliated with a crime boss, James Big Jim Colosimo. I don't know. He's got a.
Steve.
Calisimoso.
We're just going to call him Big Jim. He's associated with Big Jim out in Chicago. So Capone packs up from New York, moves to Chicago. And there, again, he took up work as a bouncer. This time, it was at a brothel. And getting to that little point about him being unfaithful, plot twist, this is where he picks up syphilis.
Oh no! Is it because he tested the merchandise?
He
Sampled the
also
products?
wasn't just a bouncer. He also was like he'd say, "Hey, we have a good." He was a like what?
A salesman?
I guess salesman would be what it is, but he's standing on the street like he just chucks this dude out for being weird or whatever, because you can be ultra weird in a brothel. Chucks this guy out of the brothel and is like, "Oh, by the way, we got some hot ladies in here, guys."
He was essentially the neon signs before they were
He
readily
was the red
available.
light before red lights existed.
Yep.
What?
Well, actually, no. I'm pretty sure.
They had electricity.
Wasn't the first red light in Cincinnati in like 1816 or something like
They're
that?
like, hey,
Oh, I have no idea.
No, definitely not 1816. What am I saying? Don't listen to me. That's not factual.
so back in 1776,
They had their
actually
first-
all of the Indians just
George
gave us
Washington
this land.
invented the first rocket ship.
So-
Hear me out. Elon Musk got with him. Okay, it lands, man. It's cool.
So, as we all know about the aliens building the pyramids, did you know
hey,
about the
disprove
whale?
aliens, bro.
Did you know about the whales invading Texas?
Well, yeah, they use their jetpacks.
Oh, you did hear about this
Yeah,
story.
it's crazy.
I thought they had rocket. I didn't think.
Luckily, they were defended by the midgets with lasers. They fended the whales off of Texas, and the
God
world
bless
was
the midgets.
saved that day. During that time, syphilis was treatable, but for some reason, Capone never sought out treatment.
He was scared of needles, and that was their.
Was that really?
Yeah,
I never
that's
heard
it.
that.
He could have been cured, and he could have not died, but he
That's-
was scared of needles.
that
was
is
one
really
thing
dumb.
That's what he. Yeah, he
That's-
let that
that's-
phobia get to him. Which I mean, if you're scared
Yeah.
of something, you're scared of something. But
And
I don't think
medicine,
I've ever been scared of
medicine back
spiders
then
that
was
bad.
probably a little bit janky too.
yeah,
you know?
I mean, you probably had to go to some guy with like a plague mask or something like that. Or
right,
they're like,
right.
Well, or they're like checking your heart rate, be like, does like a line of coke, be like, oh, you got ghosts in your blood. You better do crack.
We're gonna bleed you with some leeches, and then
Here, this is a peach. Puts it on your forehead, and then dips you in salt water. You're cured.
This is the early 1900s. We know hospitals.
I say that as like every soccer mom nowadays, like, you got a headache? Look. This is some essential oil that'll help with that.
doing like a chant.
It fixes everything. You got cancer? Not anymore.
Put some
Again,
Melaleuca oil on it.
again.
I went in my backyard, juiced my grass. It cured my jockstrap.
Feels so much better right now. 1 second.
Praise our Lord and Savior, coconut oil.
It's antibacterial, and it can be used as toothpaste.
And deodorant, and it is so good to cook with. Let me tell you, I
I've
made.
lost 86 pounds because I don't eat my food.
I just
It ruins
eat.
everything.
I just eat coconut oil.
Do you
That's
like
all
pizza?
need.
Let me tell you about coconut oil pizza. You take the coconut oil, right? You float pepperoni slices on it. You take the pepperoni slices off, and then you eat the coconut oil. It tastes so much like pizza, you wouldn't believe it. Now let me sing a chant over it. Back to Torrio. He was a mob boss for a mostly Italian-American gang, and he brought Capone along to become his right-hand man.
Not left-hand man, because those guys are bad.
Exactly, just the right-hand man.
If you run out of toilet paper, stuck with the left hand. Don't want to be the left-hand man.
An interesting tidbit about Torrio, though, and this ties in, he preferred settling disputes, usually like the turf disputes and the land disputes. He preferred to settle them without violence. So he would try to negotiate with the gang leaders and find a peaceful resolution. It was around this time that a small gang called the Northside Gang got into a dispute over casino debts with the Genna brothers. Now, as I understand it, the Genna brothers are affiliated with Torrio, and the Northside Gang is not affiliated with him. He makes a very strange call here, where instead of arranging the peaceful negotiations between the Genna brothers and the Northside Gang, he instead orders, or is associated with ordering, there's no confirmation that he directly ordered it, but he at least allowed it to occur. There was a hit put out on the Northside Gang leader.
So this guy, and this is the issue, is I listened to it while I was working, so I don't exactly remember the context leading up to it. But this guy, I think it was like a business transaction or whatever. Al Capone really wanted to set his reputation up.
Was this when he was a mob boss, though, or was this before?
No, I think this was before.
This was before?
He really wanted to set up his reputation. And one of the ways that people started to fear him more is they heard about a story that's actually true. He walks into this bar, and there's a guy sitting on a stool, and I don't remember his affiliation with the guy or whatever, but he goes up to the guy, I think he shakes his hand, pulls out his pistol, sticks it up to the guy's chin, and fires 6 rounds into his head, and
Oh my gosh.
and the guy starts to fall over, he props him back up and unloads the magazine into the guy's head, and then pushes him over, and then walks out as he straightens his tie and stuff. And that news spread like wildfire.
Oh, that's like the gangster.
Yeah.
That's
So-
the
and that was-
gangster MO.
Yeah, and so that was one way that people really started to fear Al Capone and like started to respect him a lot. And,
I
like,
would be
realized,
terrified.
Oh, don't mess with this guy because he's serious.
Oh, dude, that's such a movie moment too. I would actually.
Yeah, when I
that-
heard
yeah.
it, I was like scared and in awe.
Right,
I was
and
like, holy crap, that guy's
I'd want to see that happen. Like, I'd want to take a time machine back there and watch it happen, but I'd also not want to see that.
You'd want to take a time machine then back to before you took a time machine back then.
And unsee it. Yeah, I'd be like,
Yes.
don't do it. It's so
Watch
bad,
it
but it's so
momentary-
cool.
Just to see, I
Yeah,
don't know,
exactly.
crazy stuff.
So that's a great story. I don't know exactly where that ties in with the timeline, but this one is a little different. This is more in terms of how this story is more in regards to Capone's rise to mob boss in Chicago. But that is an important tie-in, I think, in that he's setting up his reputation this whole time. It's not just an overnight thing where, bam, he's the mob boss. This whole time, as Torio's right-hand man, he is setting himself up to eventually be the mob boss.
Yeah.
Which is great. That is his, like we talked about, where he's that young kid in the streets and he's setting up a reputation where if you're good to him or you're, somebody that he likes, he'll set you up really good. He'll be your best friend. He will give you money and everything you need to make sure that you are successful. And if you get on his bad side, he will shoot you 6 times in the head
Yeah.
in a bar.
Yep.
So in this dispute, Torio ends up making a weird choice and settling with the Genna brothers, but also this whole time, I should clarify, the Northside gang leader, O'Banion, was expecting Torio to step in and make some sort of peaceful resolution. He was used to Torio's method of handling these sorts of things. Instead, a hit is put out on him, and it is a very cold-hearted hit. There was another gang member who ends up dying, and Frankie Yale visits the flower shop that O'Banion owns under the pretense of buying flower arrangements for this funeral. He does this several times, kind of like, oh, I need these flowers, whatever. And the whole time, he is casing the joint. He's not really interested in the
my
flowers.
gosh,
He's going in,
scary.
memorizing the layout of the entire flower shop. Then, on the morning of November 10th, 1924, Yale entered the shop while O'Banion was in the back clipping some flowers. He came in with 2 gunmen. Although, of course, classic trench coat, fedora, you can't see the guns. He just comes in with 2 henchmen. He goes in to greet O'Banion, and then they go to shake hands. He goes to greet O'Banion and goes in for a handshake. He grips tight and does not let go. The 2 gunmen flank O'Banion, come to either side, shoot him twice in the chest, twice in the throat, and then as he lies on the floor, they shoot him once in the back of the head.
Holy crap.
It's gotta be scary. You're just
That's
like,
gotta be scary.
hey, I'm a mob boss, but I also work at a flower shop. Hey, what's up, dude?
The minute you can just, I
I
kind
sell
of picture.
beauty and death.
It's like when you shake a hand, and you're like, handshake takes like what, 2 seconds? Like, hey,
I just picture this
that
moment.
story is crazy. I did hear about that one.
I just picture in this moment the minute, because like James was saying, a handshake is just kind of like and then you're done. I can just imagine when that handshake lasts a little bit longer and you just feel that grip tighten. O'Banion had to be like, the minute that happened, his mind immediately flashed to, I'm a dead man.
Yeah.
You just like, that's the kind of movie picture that I painted in that. The 2 guys come around him and just shoot him down in classic gangster style.
Oh man, that had to be crazy.
Yeah, in the middle of a flower shop. And I guess that also would be a movie scene. He's surrounded by like roses and whatever.
I believe that the story I told happened way after this story.
Okay.
Because I believe that Al Capone used that as inspiration for when he unloaded.
Okay, and that
6
actually then
rounds he
might
would use
fall that might actually fall with him being a mob boss at that time then, because it's not long after this, and it's actually these events that lead to him becoming the mob boss.
That sounds exactly right.
Okay, so that's good to tie this in. Sorry for anyone trying to follow a actual narrative timeline. We do our best, but sometimes it just doesn't always line up perfectly.
Working 40-hour weeks plus an extra 20-hour weeks on side projects, and then as much as we can for research. research.
Exactly. We try to put out the best content, but sometimes even us, the perfect this
The
podcast
most
is lava.
amazing podcast.
Yes, even we slip up sometimes.
Primarily me, Silas.
Fun fact about this event, though. O'Banion's funeral ends up being larger than the man who Yale was actually getting flowers for. Even though, really, I wish I'd written his name down, but that mob leader, gangster, had a smaller funeral than O'Banion. He ends up having a massive funeral, but isn't allowed to have it inside of a Catholic church because of his gang affiliates. They decide you're not allowed to have a...
Well, that makes sense.
Yeah. So, but that was just a fun fact. Now...
Good for them.
Exactly.
Standing up for what they believe, what they think is wrong. What is wrong?
Yeah, what is exactly wrong. Usually very gruesome criminal acts.
Those are typically pretty bad, yeah.
Leadership of the North Side Gang ends up falling to a man named Jaime Wise. And this also ties in later. He had a good relationship with mob bosses Vincent Ducci and Bugs Moran. Because of the brutal murder of O'Banion, Wise and the North Side Gang were set on revenge against Torrio and the other associates that were part of that hit. Flash forward a few months to January of 1925. I believe that's only 3 months flash forwarded. Torrio was ambushed and shot while on a shopping trip. Although he actually did survive that and made a full recovery, he decided that was the time to toss in the hat and resign as a mob boss. The leadership of his gang fell to Al Capone.
Alfonso!
Alphonse! So, at the age of 26, Alphonse Capone took control of an illegal brewery and transportation network that reached all the way into Canada. And that...
No one cares about that because they're just like, oh yeah, everything's free in love, also free healthcare.
And we read Moose.
That doesn't make any sense.
Also, we put syrup on all our cocaine.
It makes it sweeter.
But that is where we are going to end part 1 of our gangster series on Al Capone.
Alfonso!
We'll see you next episode for more on the story of Al Capone as a mob boss leader and also his eventual downfall into mental breakdown, really.
Thank you guys so much for joining us. Be sure to check us out on Spotify, iTunes, YouTube, PodBean, and Google Play. If you have any questions or if you want to be on the podcast or have a topic that you want us to cover, email us at thispodcastislava@gmail.com or message us on Facebook or Instagram.
Reach out and love us. Give us some love.
If you want to find out what's going on through the week or what we're covering, be sure to check us out on Instagram and Facebook. As I said before, we post several times a week on what we're covering and different things, just updates about that.
You can also just message us to let us know that Sam's cute.
That is also a thing.
Hey,
also, Sam is the one with red hair. This week, I'm wearing a yellow hat.
Sam's the one with red hair this week.
Next week, Silas will be the one with red hair, and I'll be the one with a cool beanie.
Well, people often ask me, like, who are you in this podcast? I'm like, I'm me.
I'm the guy that doesn't talk much, but you talk
Pretty
more
much.
than me this podcast.
It was weird.
Thank you again to Custom Edge Tech Solutions for sponsoring this episode of This Podcast is Lava. We hope that it met your standards and that you'll give us another sponsor because...
And a free iPhone.
Well, thanks for joining us, everybody. Have a wonderful morning, evening, or noon.
Or car ride.
Or a car ride, or if you're sitting in a dingy office where there's just fluorescent bulbs and you're wondering if you're going to just jump out that window today, just take your office chair, smash through the window, and jump because there's nothing to live for
If that's
because
the
you
case, they
hate your
should not be
job.
listening to this podcast because they will probably jump.
Instead, you go and look
I
at that
would too.
big, those posters that
The
say
big
like,
poster with the kitten hanging on just...
and it says
it's-
success.
Yep.
Motivation. Those motivational posters. Look at that.
Go look
Take
at
a
that. Do
big
not
whiff-
look at the actual
Just
anti-motivation.
Take a bunch of drugs and then enjoy the trip.
I got it.
I'll see you
Just
next
think-
fall.
Just think of Morgan Freeman saying, hang in there.